All right, so you are going to, this is the home page. Remember, this week we're working in getting started. So you need to click here. Each unit or each button on the home page will always take you to a page that looks like this. You'll always click on e-lessons. We're going to go down, and to start off with, I'm going to go through this last assignment, and we're going to do it together this time. And then if you haven't completed any of the other ones, the remaining class time, you'll do that. And then that just leaves you to take the quiz tomorrow when you're at home for my second block. So click on this right here. All right, I'm in student view, so you see the nice pink button down at the bottom here, because I want you to see what this is. So I didn't put in here that this is a text box assignment. If you haven't done text box assignments, you probably come here and you go, I don't have a text box to type in. Well, it's a little confusing. You're going to have to click on Submit Assignment even though you're not ready to submit yet, because it gives you your text box. All right, but before I do that, I want to read through here and explain what we're doing. So you're going to use what we've learned from the video on scientific method and the PowerPoint that I did and what you already know, and you're going to read this scenario and you're going to answer, or using this format, you're going to answer or explain if this person set up his experiment correctly based on what we know about the scientific method. All right? And you have to support it with evidence. So your format, you're going to have one sentence that answers the question. So you're going to state whether or not he followed the scientific method. Then you're going to have three pieces of evidence that support that claim, and it can come from the video, it can come from what you've already know about the scientific method, it's knowledge that you have, and then you're going to have reasoning that supports your claim, so you may need to pull some examples up here to help back it up. All right, and when you've submitted your text entry, box, click on the arrow and you go back to the assignment list. So here's the rubric that I'll grade by. So you get 2 points for your first sentence. You get up to 5 points for each of the 3 pieces of evidence, and you get 5 points for the reasoning for each piece of evidence. So it's a total of 12 points. So text box entries are confusing because they don't give you the text box on the first page. So if you see something like this, and I'll try to remember to make sure this is you're going to use a text box, you have to click Submit Assignment. And you're going to have the exact same instructions up here. You just won't see the rubric. You'll get a box to type in, and then we will submit assignment when we're finished. So what we're going to need to do first is read through this, the paragraphs here. Normally you would do this on your own. I'm going to read it through with you, and we're going to go and do this one together. So you're welcome to type what I type. It's going to be hard to see, so I'll verbally tell you what I'm typing. Or you can do it yourself once we go through the explanation. Does that make sense? At least a nod, a shake head. Okay. All right, so John Baptista van Helmont was a Flemish chemist and physician during the 1600s. He studied various things, but is known for his experiments related to spontaneous generation theory. Spontaneous generation theory states that living things come to life from non-living matter. For example, fleas could come to life from dust. So let me share a couple others with you. They believe that hay produced mice. So hay gave rise to mice. They believe that rotting meat gave rise to maggots. So they came up with this idea that non-living things produce living things. So there's a lot of different ones out there that people believed. Van Helmont created an experiment to test his hypothesis that sweat provided the active principle which brought mice to life from dust. So he said that something from sweat, there was something in there that brought the mice to life from dust. And to test this, he put a sweaty shirt and grains of wheat into a box and waited to see if mice were spontaneously produced. Every time he conducted his experiment, mice appeared to be chewing their way out of the box within 21 days. All right, so he set up his experiment. So I guess he had a box. He put a sweaty shirt in it. He's wanting to prove the sweat produced the mice, but he also put grain in the box. And so usually about 21 days later, he would observe mice eating their way out of the box. All right, so based on this description of his experiment, did he set up his experiment correctly to follow scientific method? Support your claim with evidence and explain your reasoning. So let's think about this. Based on what we know from the last time we were in class about scientific method, do you think he set it up correctly? You shaking your head? Are you saying no? Okay. What might be a problem with this if you think it's no? Where did he kind of, where do you think he messed up? You can look on your screen if you got it pulled up because mine's small. So he had a box, he put a sweaty shirt and grain, and he said 21 days later mice were eating their way out of the box. What about that setup was not right? No? I didn't hear you, Austin, but I think you. The week? Oh, the wheat, yes. Very good, because what was he wanting to test? Was it wheat that he wanted to test or was it sweat? Sweat. So he actually had two what? Variables that he was testing because he had two things in there. All right. So the first thing says one sentence answering the question. So let's look at the question. Based on the description of his experiment, did he set up his experiment correctly following the scientific method? So um, I did not have the rubric up here, but the rubric says that you should not answer just yes or no, or I think, or I believe. So you're going to make a statement without that. So you're going to say something to the effect of, um, let's see, we could say, so we had a description of his experiment. So we can say based on the description of his experiment, and I'm just going to put his last name, but you could put his full name, Van Helmont, and we're saying did not, right? Did not set up his experiment correctly to follow the scientific method. Oops, don't capitalize that. All right, so we did the first part, one sentence. So do I need to repeat that so you can type it or can you see it all right? I can't, because it's presenting from the Chrome box up here, I can't make it really any bigger. So we'll scroll up. Now we need 3 pieces of evidence. All right, so we mentioned one piece, the wheat, that he tested the sweaty shirt and the grain. So he had 2 things in um, that he was really testing. All right, so because if we want to know that mice come from sweat, or the sweat helps from the dust, we needed only sweat and dust, right? We didn't need anything else. So we can say for this that he had 2 different, and we call those independent variables. So Van Helmont tested 2 independent variables, but claimed only sweat produced, or not, well, helped, only sweat helps produce mice. All right, so let's think about scientific, that's the most obvious one up here. But to do scientific method fully and correctly, what else did he not do? If you remember when I talked about, I used the example of the coronavirus vaccines, and what did a lot of people, or the treatments with like hydrochloroquine, why are some doctors not accepting that as a treatment? What did the people who've used it not do? Think about setup for um, scientific method. Let's see, where's my mouse? All right, if I go in here and I have the same things here, so I'm just going to go here, even though that says physical science. I'm in student view, so I can't do that. Isn't that lovely? Okay, let me go here, see what happens. Nope. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That's because I'm in a different course. All right, let's see what happens if I do this. Did it open one up here? No, let me go out of that. I was wanting to open another page, but I think I'm limited because I'm in student view. I wanted to pull up oh, maybe I can. Or is it going to say access? Yeah, it's not going to let me open another page. But in the PowerPoint, so in an experiment, scientific method, or for using scientific method, we have a question. He had a question. He made a prediction. He predicted the sweat had something that helped create the mice. You set up your experiment. And we already know you're only supposed to have one independent variable. All right. What else did he have one setup, or did he have multiple setups? What's missing from that? There were 3 things: independent variable, dependent variable, and then there was one more thing. What do we do with all the other variables? We control them, right? Have to control them. And in something like this, he should have an experimental group and a control group. Experimental group is what he did with the independent variable testing. So what is the control group? The control group is what? Is it going to have any changes made to it? No, it's going to be just normal. So did he have a control group? No. So that would be one as well. So we can go here and we can say he also did not use a control group in his experiment. And then not only a control group, but he did not control other variables, right? So in an experiment, do we know if the mice gnawed their way into the box or did they gnaw their way out of the box? Do we know for sure? But it said out of the box, but if he's only observing every 21 days, does he really know which way it happened? No. So, and back then, did they have videos where he could set up a video and actually watch it that way? No. All right. So, the third thing then is Van Helmont did not control other variables um, in the experiment. All right. So we have done the evidence. We did the claim. We've done 3 pieces of evidence that supports the claim. Now we have to explain why your evidence supports the claim. It explains why your evidence is important. So we've kind of talked about it as we came up with these. So we're just going to put it in a few sentences here. So in the process of the scientific method, an experiment must have certain um, requirements, I'm going to back it up and say follow certain guidelines. All right, so if we test more than one independent variable, do we know which variable actually caused the effect? Do we know if the sweat produced the mice or if the grain attracted the mice? Do we know? Because we had both there. All right, so in an experiment, only one variable should be tested. Otherwise, it is impossible to know if the sweaty shirt or the wheat was the active principle. Principle with the LE. All right, what was our second thing? That control group. So we can say, oh, let me give you a minute. I forget I type faster than everybody. When I was in high school, we had to take 180 days of typing. I got pretty good at it. So notice I'm taking each statement I put for my evidence and I'm just giving a reason for it. Okay? So the second thing that claimed that or the second piece of evidence was he did not use a control group in his experiment. And so we know that for scientific method, we have to have a control group for comparison, and we don't know what would happen if the independent variable was not there. So we need to know what would happen without the independent variable and to do a comparison. So that's what we're going to put in a sentence here. So we're going to say, not having a control group makes it difficult to know if your hypothesis was supported because you do not know what would happen without the independent variable. And I misspelled something. I think that. All right, so we're going to do our last one. And so hopefully in English, you remember there are words that can transition you. You can do first, second, third, lastly, things like that. So I'm going to use the word lastly. He did not control his control. We said other variables. So his conclusion is faulty. And then you need to do some type of concluding sentence, which I don't think I had put up there, but just in typical writing. So it's just a statement. So, you could say something for these reasons, his experiment, for all these reasons, his experiment led, L-E-A-D, I think, led to a wrong conclusion. All right, so if you did this with me and you did it exactly like I did it up here, you're going to automatically get your 12 points for this, okay? So throughout, I know in biology, some of my other classes, the other classes, we may not have as many, but in biology, toward the end of a concept, you will probably have one like this. I may put it in a text box like this, or I may put it in a discussion. If I put it in a discussion, once you've put it up there, you always have to go back, and if I put it in the directions to do so, you may have to go back and respond to somebody. So always make sure you read directions carefully. If you have everything typed, then with the text box you submit, notice the rubric is still down here, so you can always go back and see how you can get your full points. And then you're going to submit assignment. Did yours do all that funny stuff there? That's new. I don't remember it doing that. So in other classes, if they have you do a text box, you now know that you have to click submit assignment first to get the text box. Why they set it up like that, I don't know. That's not something I can control. Questions on that? All right, I'm going to see if I can go back. Yes. All right, so if you have done every one of these right here, you have done all the assignments for this week except for the quiz. If there's one of these you have not done, you're going to have time to work on it. Okay? So, for example, I think everybody did the ed puzzle in class because everybody played the video. Some of you did the practice, some of you did the concept map. If you chose to do the concept map before yesterday, it was a very simple process. I'm going to see what it'll do in student view here. Google is choosing to not allow us to incorporate Google stuff very easily because they don't want us to incorporate it in anything but Google Classroom. So they made a change and it messed up my assignment. So for this assignment, has anyone not done concept mapping here? All right, so follow along with me so we can talk through this together. I will not be able to show a lot of it up here, and I'll come around and help. But you're going to click Load Concept in a new window. You are going to have to, probably, if you haven't already, you may have to say, link it to your drive, or it may not. You should get a window similar to this, except you may have a link that's right here. So do you have a window similar to this and it has a link right here? Let me come around and see. Okay, but you have a little yellow icon for slides. Click on the yellow icon. Okay, you've got to click link, link, and then you should see an icon for slides. All right, so go up to the magnifying glass and choose 100%. Go to the magnifying glass and choose 100%. Now click on that. Okay. Let me get my mic going so other people can see this. All right, so you may have to link to your Google account, so follow all the screens to link. You will have a little box here, but you'll have a little icon for a Google slide. You'll click on that link, and I'm going to try to go this way. Yours would look kind of like this, but you wouldn't have had to click on the paperclip. I'm going to click here and see if it will open. All right, yours probably opens small. You want to make sure you go to the magnifying glass over here, choose 100% so you can see it. You're going to drag and drop these in the order. You may want to, in another tab, open up that PowerPoint from the lessons page, and I'll come around and individually help you do that so you can have something to look at to help you do this. When you are finished, notice there's no submit button. You have to click back on the other tab where you had the link and it says submit. That's when you submit. But you have to finish it here. Then you will click back here and there's a submit button. Click submit. Don't click submit until you've opened it and completed it. Okay? So I'm going to come around and help you get the other lesson page up so you can get to that. I'm going to stop my recording first.